Should we start right now, Bu Fitri, or should we wait first?
We still have around 7 minutes. We can wait for a moment.
Okay.
For other participants to join, since we will start at 10. So maybe you can keep discussions with other participants as well as problem, yeah, for how to say brief introductions for today.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Over here we have Pak Fatur. Halo Pak Fatur.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Hafiz. Nice to see you.
Yes. Thank
Morning.
you. How is the paper list?
What?
How is the paper list? I'm sure you are still working on that, right?
Oh, you mean about the RCCE?
Yes, the conference paper.
Yeah. Actually, I have finished, to arrange that full paper to its folder. So now we should have a meeting to to discuss how to process this full paper to each editor in a journal.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, maybe this afternoon.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of our students here. We have Dita, Yurin, also Visni and Hari is over here as well. Oh, I see Mariono. Wait, somebody just left.
Habib?
Yes.
I guess you can start for introductions.
Yes.
Problem to the audience.
Okay.
Because I see here problem for your informations, not only the UPI students, but also the researcher and also lecturer from other university and also institutions. So it would be a great opportunity, I guess, to have more, how to say, more broader interactions. As today topic, I guess it's very, how to say, interesting, especially on preparing the research publications, yeah. In particular, how to prepare the good figure images, yeah, the attractive figure images. And today it will be more technical, I guess. Problem will bring us, yeah, how to create the, how to say, interactive, for example, graphical abstract, or even though the images that need to be displayed in our draft publication. So problem, thank you so much for how to say, greatly design this topic, yeah, for our workshop. Pak Habib, I guess you can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can start for today's seminar. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would first like to welcome you to our third seminar series on this World Professor Seminar Series from Department of Chemistry Education, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Today's seminar topic is the engineer's way of image formatting and styling for research publication. So for the in the first two seminars, we talk more about the writing and the publication of the seminar. For this third seminar, it will be more technical, and we will talk about how to make a more stylish image, which I should say. First, I would like to introduce you to our speaker. I'm sure most of you already know who he is. This is Professor JitKang Lim from University of Science Malaysia, Chemical Engineering. His education is in his bachelor is in chemical engineering, University Science Malaysia, and PhD in chemical engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. His research interests include colloidal and transport behavior of magnetic nanoparticles, magnetic separation, magnetic nanoparticle polymer hybrid materials, as well as transport behavior under low gradient field. This is some of his professional experience and awards. He was a visiting professor of physics at Carnegie Mellon University, visiting professor at Korean Advanced Institute of Technology, Chinese Academy of Science, as well as National University of Singapore, or NUS. He is also founding chair of American Chemical Society chapter Malaysia. Right. Some of his awards here is National Young Scientist in 2014 and always Promising Academician Award in 2015. This is just some of his publication. This over here we only take some of his most recent one. One is on environmental monitoring of trace metal pollutant using cellulosic paper incorporating color change of azochromophore, and complex interplay between colloidal stability, transport chemical reactivity, and magnetic separability of polyelectrolyte functionalized nanoscale zero valent particles toward engineering their engineering application. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Professor JitKang Lim. Professor, time is yours.
Thank you so much. I hope I get the name correctly. It's Pak Hafiz, is it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Pak Hafiz, thank you so much for your kind introductions. And as usual, I would like to thank Dr. Fitri for her willingness to host me, and of course, the sponsor of the World Class Professors Program of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technologies of Indonesia. All right, thank you so much, and not to forget about Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia as well. All right, so I guess this is the third series, so I don't think I need to talk much or directly go into the presentation today, because there's quite a lot we need to accomplish for today, especially on the manuscript preparation and about the copyright issue of the image usages and things like that. All right, actually I have logged into 2 accounts here today, because some of the software I'm going to use, I need to open a few software, then afterwards I will explain to you why I need that. So actually my laptop can't handle it, so I need a powerful desktop. So afterwards I will be switching between my laptop and desktop. All right, I hope you all could see this, my presentation slides. All right, so this is the presentation topic for today, and
yes, we can see it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hafiz. All right, and this is the outline of our presentation. First, I'm going to talk about very briefly only, figure design and orientation. How should we orient the images and our figures, our graph, and how do we obtain copyright permission from journal? And what is the DPI and how to achieve it from journal publication? Especially nowadays, we need to use more than one software. For example, like when we're writing manuscript, we need to use some word processing. Normally, it's a Microsoft Word documents. And we also need to capture some images using the original software. If you are using optical microscope or transmission electron microscope, they all have their own software to capture the images. Then, of course, you save the images in certain format and certain quality. Then afterwards, when you want to reformatting it, normally you have your software to reformatting them. Then, of course, afterwards, you import it into some software to formatting it before you import again into Microsoft Word documents. So there's a few transition between software and between the softwares. So how to maintain the resolution of these images from one software to another software, and how to import it from one to another one. That's the main topic of the discussion for this part. Then later on, of course, I'll talk about pen.net. In fact, there's a lot of freeware over there, but personally, I'm using the pen.net, so I'm quite familiar with it. So today I'm going to talk about it. Anyway, it's free and it's very powerful. at least it's powerful enough for scientific purposes. So that's the focus of this. Then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about graphical abstracts. And as the name of the presentation implies, right, is a dummy way or an engineer's way, right? So I'm not artist, right? So I can't tell you exactly how nicely you want to construct your figure and the aesthetic sense behind it, nothing like that. I just want to use purely from the engineer's perspective, from a scientific perspective, how should we doing it without caring too much about the color, how is the color tone, how nicely the graphic will look like, and things like that. In fact, I strongly against the idea of including or incorporating too much of aesthetic sense or aesthetic sense into our graphic design, especially for scientific publication. Because scientific publication, the most important one is we want to convey our message through the images. So we do not want to make the graphic to be very, very fancy. A lot of nowadays, I heard a lot of this workshop, they're talking too much about how to create a 3D images with a color tone for graphical abstract. I think I have to strongly against the idea, because your graphical abstract is actually a summary for your work. So it needs to be as clear as possible, and more importantly, to convey the message. That's the most important one, not how nicely the graphics looks like, but rather than the message behind the graphics. So those are the underlying principles or the underlying philosophy behind this talk today. Right. First, let me talk a little bit about the figure design and orientation. Right. So when it comes to the figure design, it's important to organize and outline the papers around the easily assimilated data. So like for those who are actually attending my second talk, actually we talk about the George Whiteside way of how to preparing the outline and things like that. So in fact, I think I bring out a very important point in which the Whiteside from Harvard Chemistry actually pointing out it is important to you to visualize your papers in terms of image form. So before even you start writing your papers, you already have figure 1, figure 2, figure 3. You anticipated what is going to be a figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3 and things like that. So the figures can be used as the backbone of your or outline of the papers, not necessarily only all sentences and things like that. In fact, I strongly recommend you to actually visualize or envisage what is actually the figures that's going to incorporate into your coming papers. So you could constructed your paper, or you could constructed the outline of the paper based on the figures that you are going to design. All right, then keep all the figure as simple as possible, and by limiting variable, the shape, size, orientation. I'm going to talk mainly about orientation later on, and make sure if you want to have text inside your figures, make sure the text is very readable. So some of the software, right? For example, I will say this. Do not use Microsoft Excel to draw your graph and incorporate it into Microsoft Word. Microsoft Excel is actually a spreadsheet program. It is not it's a spreadsheet software. So it is not a software that created to making graph. So it is the graph designed by Excel. You can't really control its DPI. That means you can't control its resolutions, and you have too much of flexibility. In fact, they have overwhelming amount of flexibility. So when you're resizing and things like that, sometimes the text can be off center, changings, not aligned and things like that. So the Microsoft Excel actually is a very bad software for making graph purposes. So I strongly suggest all of us should have, at least every single research group should have their own software to make a graph. I do not have time to talk about this, but my group, if those who are about to, I think a lot of people ask me is, what is the software that we should use to make graph? Then I will propose one for you, which is Ego. It is not a free software though. It's quite expensive. I think it's roughly about $700 or something like that. I don't know exactly what's the price now, but it is actually it's a software based on Mac system that eventually now they have the Windows version and also the Linux version as well. So Ego is a very good one, especially later on with the Ego, right? You can save the images in a very high quality, which you can't be achieved by using Microsoft Excel. So that's the reason why you should be, and you can adjust the text and things like that in the Ego. So I think it's very important. And removing everything that's not convey the data. For example, you have the color tone, you have the color, shadow, and whatever it is, shadow, color tone, gradual change of color and things like that. If Gradient change of color is used for certain purposes. For example, it's used to illustrate the wavelength, the frequency change, because the color change associate the frequency change. Sure, go ahead and use it. However, if you just introduce the color changes or color tone for the sake of art, for the sake of making it looks good, maybe you shouldn't do it, because those doesn't convey any scientific message, and you shouldn't incorporate it into your figures. And transition data should always belong to supplemental information. When we submit the papers, we can also submit extra information, extra document that's called supporting information, in which, for example, you plot a graph, right? Sometimes one data point is average of the whole graph, right? So you only plot all the average value inside your graph. So those raw data, you could actually include it inside your supplemental information, especially if you believe those raw data can be very beneficial or is helpful for the readers to really understand your sciences, or more importantly, they could benefit out from the data you're going to attach as a supporting information. So you can attach all this as a supporting information rather than incorporate everything into the main body of your manuscript. So take advantage of this supplemental information, especially those top journal, right? If you really check on, like really good journal like Physical Review Letter, Journal of American Chemical Society, even Nature, Sciences, most of the papers they publish is very short, maybe 3 pages, 2 pages, 4 pages, very short manuscript. But the supporting information can be 20, 30 pages, because most of their important data and things like that is all within the supporting information. So maybe you should consider take advantage of submitting a supporting information, right? So one questions that I always got is this: do I need a figure or I need the tables, right? So these are some of the guidelines. So if you want to, when people look at it, they understand the trend, especially you want to show the trend, not the value of data, then you should have a figure. And if you want the people to look at certain number, right, then maybe you should having a table. And if you want to communicate a lot of information with words, that means you explain too much, then this number change from this and value change from blah, blah, whatever. So maybe you need a table, right? So I'm the one that really like to compiling figures in the table form. So if you look at most of my publication, I always like to combine tables and figures together. So for example, like these images, I showed 4 different kinds of species of nanomaterials, change with respect to time, and how the physical appearance change, nanorod sphere, coded one, and coded sphere, and things like that. So it is a very powerful method. I would strongly recommend, especially if you have a lot of images, right, that actually you want to plot it. In fact, I could get the the validity of these images and plot the graph. But when I plot the graph, I lost this visual image, visual guidance, or visual aid of this understand these processes. So I think it's much powerful if I could incorporate the picture into it or photo into it. And that's the reason I was combining the figures inside the tables, which I think is a very powerful way of publication. Okay, another one is this. Normally, you can also combine graph with tables, right? For example, in these cases, there's another one of my publication where I combine, like different graph into different stages of the processes, then eventually on different particles and things like that, right? So that I plot all those and incorporate it inside one figure, right? So think about it. I would strongly recommend if you have a lot of figures or a lot of graph, and which all you can really sorting out the graph into different phases, which is interrelated to each other, and it's too complicated for you to explain everything in words. If you want to explain everything, it will be a lot of efforts you need to put in. So I guess it's much better for you to having the figures combined into a table form, or the graph combined into a table form. All right. So this might not be very relevant nowadays, because last time, or maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, when you submit the color figure, some of the journal will actually charge you the figure processing fee. But I guess nowadays there's no more the color images would not be charged and things like that. But for certain cases, until today, right, I still like to draw my graph with symbol rather than using different color to indicate different trend and things like that. The reason is the color eventually, if you have too many lines, then the color may be very messy and things like that. But it's the personal taste. I'm not going to advocate this point because it's eventually depends on who who is the author and who is the reader. But if you do not need a color to catch the reader eye, for example, like you didn't need to have a color, you need to actually make some data stand out from the rest of the data, right? So you might need to use a symbol only. You didn't need to use different colors and things like that, right? I'm wondering if you look at this, I put this as one of the example poly design figures. Can some of you suggest why I think this is a poly design figures? If you look at these figures, anybody? Let me look at the chat.
Because it was too small.
Yeah, yes, definitely. You look at the text, it's very small. And beside that, other than that,
Oh yeah, it was. It should be it should be rotated, I think.
okay,
Rather than that way.
The color doesn't useful, I think.
yes.
The colors.
Yeah, the color is not useful because there's
Yes.
too many. Then some of the color looks very similar. So eventually the color, if you look at it, this is an example of you use color to really differentiate something, differentiate some data from others. But eventually this color doesn't play the role. It's too many colors. Then of course, like what before that, the wording is too small and you cram with so much of data and things like that. Right, so there's a lot of things that we should avoid, like making figure like this. And I even see some published image making this mistake. This what I'm going to show, something like this. Right, the first thing is the X and Y. Even though it looks almost is a year, but you still need to label, right? You need to have the X label, year. Then you need to have a unit for it. Then the images and look at it, and some of there's a broken figure here, overhanging. So you need to, closing it. And in general, I really don't like Excel, and especially after I explain to you what's the resolution and how could you import high resolution images inside your figures, then you know exactly why Excel is such a bad software, because the Excel is really difficult for you to control resolution and things like that. All right. And this is one of the images drawn by my student, right? When my student give me this kind of images and things like that, I yell at him directly. Then I have to draw figures for him. You see, nowadays the PhD advisor not only need to read the paper, also need to draw a graph for the student. The first thing is look at it. If you Excel, like if you drag it and things like that, it's overlapping like this, and look at two figures, they are not even at the same format, and the labels, there's no need for you. Remember Excel, that sometimes they always have this, I think it's come with default. Now they have these titles here and things like that. Of course you can choose different format and things like that, but because you have figure caption, so you do not need to have this guy, right? And of course, look at the text is so small, so I need to redraw it. So I redraw the figures by using Ego, and this is how it's actually the same figure, right? So I not only draw the figures, I also expect to incorporate a optical micrograph images to show what is happening together, so become A, B, and C. And also you look at it, the wording and everything is very neat because I standardize all the font size, all the same font size, same measurement, everything is the same, right? And of course I have the unit, blah blah, and this is I drawn by using Ego, right? Then of course you look at it, it's very sharp images because I save it in a very high resolution, then import it into for these cases, of course, it's Microsoft PowerPoint, right? So one of the, if you really look at this, can anybody want to suggest what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this image? What do you think is going wrong? Let me tell.
Resolution is too low.
Yeah, the resolution is too low for sure, right? You look at it, it's so diffuse, right? It's very fuzzy, diffusing, so it looks really ugly. So the resolution is too poor, too low. Other than that, the second one I will tell you all, there's no point for you to have this transparent stuff here. Why you need transparent? It doesn't convey, it doesn't bring any message, right? It's not even looks good, right? Actually, I think the order want to make it looks good, but it's not even looking good because it's transparent. Then of course, then there's there's color tone that doesn't doesn't play any role here. And in fact, this molecular structure is so important, right? Because they are talking about interactions using AFM to study the molecular interactions, the molecular structures and things like that. But the molecule is like so diffuse and things like that. So if you really look at it, right? If you change from here and gradually moving over here, why I strongly advocate something, sorry. I want to remove. All right, if you really look at it from here to here, right? First is the tips. Do you need to have a fancy shape to represent the tips? Keep it as simple as possible, and you want to emphasize on the molecular structures and things like that. Then you should make it stand out, right? Make it really large and things like that. And of course, no color tone, no transparency and things like that. And if you really pay attention, right? I'm the old-fashioned, old people. So when old-fashioned old people, I'll tell you, it looks much professional if you use all the cold color in your image, especially for scientific design. When I say cold color, that means gray, black, dark gray, not apple green. Like here, you still got apple green, or the Hello Kitty kind of pink. Those are the really terrible color, or striking yellow. You should really avoid. Try to use a lot of cold color rather than hot color to construct your images. Then your image will look more professional. Of course, that's very subjective, depends on the taste. Because one of my students, she always want to use a Hello Kitty pink, and she think the pink is very striking and very nice and make the whole thing stand out, right? But I would say that try to restrain from using too much of color, increase the contrast, of course, and the sizes, and enlarge something that is the more important one, and do not overshadow your more important message. For example, just like here, overshadow your important message with some other design. It looks fancy but doesn't really mean anything. All right, this is one of my favorite that I want to share with the audience. When it comes to design a figure, right, whether it's a graph or images, I always like to avoid making a horizontal shape graph like this. I always prefer to make a rectangular graph. If you look at horizontal, like this, then eventually integrate in a tree, then become crammed and looks really funny. If you look at this, I'll always like to draw a square figure and get together. The reason is then I have equal clarity of my x and y axis, unless for example, just now, I want to show a lot of changes happens within x, then minimum change in y. That's the reason I can make a rectangular. But in most of the figures and things like that, the square one looks much clearer. For example, this is the one that actually I drawn before for my student. Then after I look at it, then I draw it into square, and the square one looks much clearer and more tidy. And more importantly, maybe this looks, because it looks bigger, right? Of course, you think it looks nice. But if you combine them, right, and put them inside a paper form, remember the paper is 2 columns. And when you put it inside, introduce and integrate it into the manuscript, then it becomes 2 columns, things like that. Then you could exactly know what I mean, right? Because it won't be compressed too much, right? That's one thing. The second thing that's very difficult to explain here is this. Because all the manuscript normally is 2 columns, right? If you design a figure that's square, normally we can anticipate the image, the square image, right? Is always going to appear in the 4 corners, corner 1, corner 2, corner 3, and corner 4. However, if you have a rectangular images, because it can easily squeeze inside, is it possible the editorial office can put it somewhere at the middle or at the center of the pages? And sometimes the positioning will be very awkward, right? And of course, you can ask to change your position of the figure. But remember, that can only happen at the latest stage of your publication. It's called a process called gallery proof. That means your paper already approved, and editor is happy with your answer to a reviewer, then they're processed for publication purposes. And during that time, you still have one last chance to communicate with the editorial office about the formatting of your papers. But you do not want to change the position that they put it in. The reason is because those who work on the formatting is not scientists, they are just ordinary people. So if you give them too complicated instruction, there's always it's painful in the neck for you all to tell them, I do not want this. I want the figure is, go up a bit, or the figure appear right after my discussion, right? So if you design your figure in terms of a square, then most probably it will be, I would say 99.99% of the time, if a figure is a square figure, right? If it's only one is fit into one column, it will always appear only at one corner of it. And you kind of can anticipate what is coming next and things like that. So I would suggest, or strongly recommend you, especially if a one standalone figure rather than combine a few figures, it's very important for you to construct your figure inside a square form rather than a rectangular form. All right. And of course, if you construct your figure, it's inside the square figure, right? Because some of the journal, they expect you to submit individual high resolution figure, then only they combine it for you. For example, like here, these cases, I combine A, B, C, D, right? I can combine it as a one single figure and submit it. But there's some journal, they expect you to submit individual image A, B, C, and D. Then later on, they will combine it for you. Then they want to arrange how they want to appear on the manuscript. Right? So by having a square figure, actually what you do is you actually lock it down. If it's constructed as a horizontal one, there's possibility they could stack it, up and top and bottom, or they could put it side by side. There's no way you could control it. But if it is square, it is 99.99% of the time they put it side by side. They won't put it up and down like this. So somehow when you construct or you format the square figure, you already lock them in a certain position in which they will appear as a side by side rather than top and bottom. So that's another reason why you should construct your figures as a square figures, right? And of course, the square figure, like what I told you just now, is very easy to blend because you can anticipate it's coming at the corner. And those are the really few important points to make. And especially if you want to combine a lot of figures into, like for example, in these cases, I think I published somewhere in General Color Interface Science. This got 12 graph and things like that. So I draw it all in the square form and compile and things like that, and I pack them together so they stack very nicely to each other. And one important thing, you look at it, I not even label x-axis here, x-axis here, or y-axis here, because they are all same scale, so I can just draw them and stack them together like this. Right, so it looks much tidier and clear. All right, so any questions? Any audience have? Do you all have any questions regarding the figure orientation? All right, if not, I'm going to talk about the copyright permission from journal publisher. Before that, I'm just wondering how many of you, right, as usual, now I'm asking a question, yes or no answer. Do you know how to obtain copyright permissions from the publisher? If you know, put 1 in the chat. If you don't know, you put 0. I know how to do it, so I put 1. All right, there's quite a lot of 0. All right, so I'll use my desktop here. So let me stop sharing here because I want to share my screen. Let me stop sharing.
Should I stop it for you? All right.
Yeah, sure, I can do it now. Right. So I will use sorry, I need to look at it because my desktop is here, right? It's not like I'm not going to look at it. Oh, all right, so can I share my screen here? All right, I could. All right, now I start sharing. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
All right. Okay. So this is just one. I'm going to talk about different journal, but mostly Elsevier, ACS journal, and maybe RSC journal or YD. So they all almost the same, right? So for these cases, I'm using Journal of Color Interface Science. I will just copy and paste this link in the chat. So just in case any one of you want to do it together, you all can do it together with me. All right. So I just pick randomly, you know, I just go to the Journal of Color Interface Science and look at it. Can you all see my pointer is moving, right? So this is normally in the Elsevier journal. This is how when you click into one specific table, this is how the thing looks like. Can you all see, if you scroll down a bit, just a bit, beside the DOI here, can you see there's a get right and content? All right, if you get right and content, right, you just click into it. And once you click into it, right, it will leading you to this link. It's called rights link. For this cases, you need to create an account and you need to sign in and things like that. I will strongly recommend everybody to create an account with right links, because this is the major platform used to maintain copyright for images and anything for most of the publisher. When I say most of the publisher, Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, American Chemical Society, Royal Society of Chemistry, IEEE, whatever it is, they all use the same platform. So all you need to do, you just learn one time, then you can do it with all other publishers. It's all is the same thing, right? And why this is important? Nowadays, especially if you want to write a review articles, and when you write your review articles, you want to use other people's images, right? You want to reproduce other people's images, you need to get copyright clearance. You are not supposed to write an email and request the permission from the author of that particular paper. For example, in these cases, you know, like the Carlos Rinaldi actually is the authors, the corresponding authors. But the image copyright is not belong to him anymore, because after you publish your work, the image copyright belongs to the publisher. So you really need to do it through this way. That means like just now again, let me go back again. Here, this paper, let's say I want to use one, you look at here, right? There's 10 images. Let's say I want to use one of the image. I want to use this image either for my thesis or for my review articles. So I need to get copyright. So I click on get right and content. And once I get right and content, I come to these pages. And the first thing is next, I would like to, you say, I would like to, right? And next section is look at it. I want to reuse it in journal or magazines, right? You see that there's so many uses and things like that, right? Can you see that? Reuse in a thesis and dissertations. So even in your thesis, your PhD thesis or your master thesis, if you want to use image, published image from others, it is better for you to get a thesis. I don't know about UPI, because some of the university, right, they will publish their thesis with a DOI, or we publish the thesis with a ISBN number. So you publish your thesis as a book. When you publish your thesis as a book, and if you reuse other people's images, right, without getting the permission, copyright permission, that the publisher can sue you, you know. So you need to be very careful to reuse images and things like that. So in these cases, if I want to use it for review articles, I choose reuse in journal magazines. And once I choose reuse in magazine, and this whole thing pop up, right? So now you can choose, you know, academic institutions. We are working in a university, so it's the education institute. The intended publishing of new work is for what? All right. So you could choose which journal or which publisher. Let's say now I'm writing another review articles, and this review articles I want to submit it to American Chemical Society. I'll click American Chemical Society, and I want to use a figure. Right. So there's figure table illustration, and the number of figures I want to use one figure only. Right. If you need to use two figures, then you put 2, 3, or what. Then my format, and nowadays mostly it's electronic. And for, let's say for example, thesis, this can be both electronic and things. Also to play safe, I just click both. Then am I the author of this paper? When I say I am the author of this Elsevier, of course I'm not, because this paper is not published by me. I just want to use one figure from this engineering magnetic blah 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 by Carlos Rinaldi. So I'm not the authors. I'll be translating. If of course you want to translate into Indonesian language and things like that. Let's say you publish in your local paper, then you say yes. But for these cases, of course, no. When I say no, that means I'm going to write in English. right? And my currency is. Now that's the most important part. You need to make sure you quick check, price check, and check on the price. See, if I only use one figure, I not even need to pay a single cent to use this figure, right? So I'm perfectly safe. So I will just click the continue. All right, I'm signing in with my account. Right. So here there's more information. I just, type of new articles. Let's say just now I want to publish a review articles in ACS journal, right? So let's say I'm publish a for magnetophoresis, the author, JK Lim, me, targeted journal. Let's say I put it Lang New, publisher American Chemical Society, publisher in print. Then the expected date is like March. This you could put it the estimated number. They are not very strict on all this, right? Even the title can change and things like that. All right, but the lead author need to be you. All right. Then if I click continue, blah, and things like that. Okay. Additional information portion described. Then I put in, let's say just now I want to use figure 1, right, within the tables. At the end, I got this document. This is the most important thing because I want to show you all this document. So they have this order detail and everything. The most important one, I check again, I make sure is $0. I didn't need to pay a single cent of using this code to obtain this permission. Then of course I need to click all these things. Then I will print, I'll save this code, then I could print out the whole thing, right? It is very important not only to ask permission, but remember to keep a copy of this copyright permission documents. Of course, because I already created a user account for this for free. This is a free account. They will compile everything. All my copyright permission will be saved inside my account as well. But it is important for you to generate a PDF format and saving this page, this image, this information. The reason is this. You might writing your thesis now, 10 years, 20 years down the road, when people finding out, especially publisher finding out, if you use their images without copyright, they might send you a lawyer letter or legal letter. Then you could dig out all your proof. I have actually asked permission to use this. It is not enough if you just say, okay, I got this image from reference, whatever. It is not enough. You need to have copyright clearance. You need to have the copyright clearance for this. So you really need to ask copyright permission, especially if you want to publish, you want to reuse this image in review articles. That's a really important one. All right. And if you really look at it, right, let's say this is the Elsevier one. Let's say for UPI chemistry, I think the American Chemical Society. Let's say I go for one journal Lang Mail for American Chemical Society, right? I just want to show you almost the same thing. The list of issue, I go to any random papers. I put one papers in 2022. Let's say I want to use one figure, like just now. I also need one figure because I'm writing review articles, right? I need to use a lot of images. I need one figure from this. If you look at the outline and how the structure is completely different. But for all the papers in American Chemical Society, you all see right and permission here. That is where you need to get the copyright. You click on right and permission. If you click on it, see, it ends up going back to right ring again. But now, of course, now is the title of the paper is whatever from the Lang Mail, American Chemical Society, and things like that. So I just need to follow exactly the same procedure. Again, I want to reuse in the journal. It's a bit different here, but all the nature is the same. Then reuse in journal. My request, I'm not an author of original work, right? For these cases, if I publish, right? Remember, even I publish, I didn't get money, but the publisher get money. So it's supposed to be for profit. You can't say because I'm from university, it's non-profit. You have to remember, I I'm publishing in other journal, and the other journal making money out from it. So it's for profit purposes. And for portions, I want to use one figure. I want to use a figure or graph or whatever. And the number of table or figure I want to use is 1. And the format, again, print and electronic. Then the most important one, as usual, you check the price first. Right? And you see, for Langmuir, for American Chemical, all the professional society, very simple. They already give you permission. This permission license is granted for you, your order at no charges. The type of permission instead of standard terms is going to send back to you because no fee is being charged for your order. Please note the following, then you granted blah, blah. Then you also please print out this, as a PDF and save it, right? Some journal is very easy for you to get permission. Some will be very difficult. Like just now, Elsevier, they need a lot of detail. But at the end, the most important one is you obtain the copyright permission. You do not want to involve in any law cases. Let me tell you, for a lot of people, they will tell you this. Even I didn't go through this tedious process, nothing happened to me. Nothing happened to them yet, because if the publisher want to sue them, they definitely could sue them and they definitely will win the case because they own the copyright of all the image they publish. So again, I repeat, there's a lot of people already published review articles and they did not obtain copyright permission. They'll tell you, oh, very easy, it's nonsense, you don't need to do it because I already published and things like that, nothing happened to me. Nothing happened yet. You do not want to subject yourself to the mercy of the publisher. What I mean, subject yourself to mercy, that means it all depends on whether they want to sue me or not. They want to sue me, I need to pay for, the fine. You do not want this to happen to you, especially when you are still a poor student, If they sue your advisor, I think it's perfectly fine, your advisor is rich, right? But the poor student, you don't want to get sued, especially if you write a PhD or master thesis and you use a lot of images of other people published images, you have to obtain copyright permission. In fact, right, my PhD thesis is actually published as a book. The copyright permission of every single image that I use inside my thesis, I still keep.
Hey.
Yes. Questions?
No, I think it's just
Sure, no problem.
yeah,
I know. Yeah, right. But any questions about the copyright? Let me do
regarding that,
yes.
Professor, if
Sure.
what if we just want to recreate? I mean, we can see the table, right? So what
Sure.
if we see the table and we just make a new figure by ourselves using the
then
data?
that's your figure. Then that's your figure. But be very careful about it. If it is a table, then you key in your data, draw that, you don't need to do anything. But I guess we are all scientists. It is so important, say the raw data of the table is reconstructed based on the data from reference error. You still give credit to other people. You didn't steal the data.
I see.
But there's no copyright involved in that.
But if you are recreating figure, is
okay,
that
let's
also...
say figure. Let's say I look at one figure, it's very nice. Let's say the easiest one is like, like the experimental setup. I use exactly the experimental setup from other group. They propose how to do it. Then I set up my own in the lab. Then I also draw the setup that I have in my lab.
Yes.
But of course, the drawing is very similar with the other one.
Yes.
Because you are the one you draw this figure. That's your figure. You don't need to ask copyright. But again, it is also a courtesy. You could say this figures, the figure is redrawn based on the original construction proposed by the reference.
I see. Thank you, Professor.
All right. And one more thing. When you obtain the copyright permission, right? Some publisher, let's say for example, American Chemical Society, they are very laid back. They just give you copyright. Just now you look at it, it's so easy, right? I just obtained the copyright almost immediately. The second page, I already got it. But some American Chemical Society have a very stringent rule to expect you how you should cite them, right? So for example, in American Chemical Society, if you really look at it, right? You look at this, the page here, it says appropriate credit for request bacteria should be given. Follow. Reprint with permissions from your reference number, copyright American Chemical Society. This is how they expect you to cite them. So let's say for example, like you after you obtain the figure 1 from this page, this table, right? Then you incorporate inside your paper become figure 3, for example. Then at the bottom of the figure caption, you of course you explain what is the figure and things like that. Then the last sentence you need to have is reprint with permission from reference 37 from your paper. Copyright year, the year is 2022. Copyright 2022 American Chemical Society. You should always have this sentence at the last as the last sentence of your figure caption. Right? Some journal are very like, especially ACS and Royal Society Chemistry, they always have this rule and things like that. But for some Elsevier, they do not have strictly request this. But it's better for us to put it inside, you know, that to emphasize the image is the copyright image, and it's not from me, but we already obtained the permission, copyright permission from the American Chemical Society to use it. All right. So, any questions? Right. So there's a questions on the chat. In the chat, let me look at it. As you choose figure 1 and there's no charge, what if more than one? Yes. Right. Be very careful. You see, I always check the price, you know. Let's say, for example, the easiest way, let's go back and look at some of them. All right. Let me do again. Let's say, for example, this Elsevier, right? I go to get right and contain. Right, next selections. I want to reuse again in the journal. And educator. I want to publish in American Chemical Society. Then I want to use a figure. And now I need to use 5 figures. That means you almost use every single images from this paper, you know? Then see, can you all see it? There's a price that's coming out now because I use 5 figures. Right? Some, to be honest with you, let's say, for example, professional society, American Chemical Society, and things like that. Even you use 5 figure, they didn't charge you. They give you all the copyright. But there's some private, like Elsevier, Wiley, they are a bit stingy. They'll start to charge you. Right? Let's say, for example, if I put in 3, if I do a quick price check, see, it's 0. So I will say this: the more, then of course you will ask, if it's not free, then what should I do? How should I do about it? Then I'll tell you, if it is not free, you better don't use it at all. Right? So it is important for you to understand this copyright permission. In fact, right, later in my slide, I will talk about this. Nowadays, most of the publishers, they form a signatory. What they mean by signatory, they mean they sign a document together. They committed on one agreement, which means if another paper published in American Chemical Society, if they want to use figure published in Elsevier, since Elsevier and American Chemical Society is the 2 publishers, but they're all under this STM signatory, so you can freely use their figure, even though you publish in different publisher. Right? Most of the big publisher is already inside this signatory. For example, American Chemical Society, Royal Society of Chemistry, Elsevier, Wiley, Springer, Nature, Science, whatever. So normally, if you want to write paper in all this journal, and if you use figures from other publisher, they won't charging you. However, let's say, for example, most of the university have their publisher. For example, University Science Malaysia have their University Science Malaysia publisher. And the University Science Malaysia publisher, right, it is not under this STM signatory because you need to pay to get into it. So my university decided not to do it. So if I publish my paper in the local journal in Malaysia, published by USM, even I use 1 figure from Elsevier, they'll charge you. That's the reason why they ask the intended publisher is this. Right? For example, let's say I put 1, quick price check. No, then now I'm not going to American Chemical Society. I go to other. Right? Then I check, quick price check. Can you see it? Even 1 figure, they start to charging you. Because what you mean by other, that means it's other of all these lists. What it means is already tell you. All these publishers listed here is under the STM signatory. So you can freely use their figures from Elsevier. However, if you are from, let's say for example, UPI have their own publisher, if you check on it, let's say UPI to UPI use to be U. There's no any publisher, UPI are not listed here. So if you publish in local journal and things like that, published by UPI, then even you use one figure, you need to pay for it, right? And I think for all of you, the most important one is actually thesis. Let's go to thesis and have a look at it. If I publish in thesis, right, then I would like to use a figure, and I want to use one figure, and my format is both print and electronic. Then I'm not the author. I will be, yes, maybe you need to write in Bahasa Indonesia, then you can translate your some part into English and things like that. And quick check. Sorry. The number of language I translate is only one. You still didn't need to pay a single cent. It's still zero. Right. There's a lot of combination and things like that. I do not have time to really look at it, but I think it's very important for you all to go explore it, right? Okay, so let me look at it. As you choose one figure, there's no charge for it. Okay, what's the right time to apply for copyright permission before submission after getting accepted? Okay, the question is, what is the right time to apply for copyright permission, before submission or after getting accepted? Nowadays, especially for you to, when you submit a review articles, for example, you need to ask the permission beforehand, because most of the publishers nowadays will expect you to submit all the copyright permission form together with your submission. So you need to ask copyright permission before submission. And of course, how about, like just now, right, I tell the publisher, I obtain this copyright because I say I want to go to American Chemical Society. How about later on, I fail, then I need to go for journal under Wiley. I'm sorry, you need to request for another copyright. The only good thing about it is because you know Wiley and ACS is all under STM signatory, so you know for sure it's still free. There will be a lot of problem coming out after, let's say, I submit to ACS, got rejected. I submit to OSC, also rejected. Wiley also rejected. Springer also rejected. Every rejected. Finally, I decided, okay, maybe I should publish in local journal. And that's where the trouble comes from. Because all this local journal is not under STM signatory, then you'll be in serious trouble, right? But you should ask the copyright permission before your submission. And this is now is almost a requirement for a lot of journals. Okay, and another question, what if the case we are going to use picture from an open access journal? All right, the open access journal is a bit different. The open access, when I'm talking about all these things, all the copyright clearance and things like that, is right thing. For example, there's some journal that some publisher, let's say for example MTPI, they publish 100% open access. When it comes to open access publication, the image published in all these open access journal are not being copyrighted. The reason why this Elsevier, ACS blah, 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 is copyrighted is this. At the last step of the publication process, normally a student not involved anymore, it's become an advisor. The publisher, let's say, for example, I already got my paper accepted by Elsevier, right? And at the final stage, Elsevier will send your advisor an agreement. The agreement will request her to transfer the copyright of all the content within the manuscript to the publisher. That included the image, copyright of the image. And so once your advisor have to sign it, if not, they won't be able to publish. So once they sign it, which means they already transfer all the images, copyright images inside the paper to the publisher. But for open access, there's no such agreement. That means the author still carrying the copyright, not the publisher. Now it's become a bit tricky. Of course, when it comes to open access journal, you did not need to request the copyright from the publisher because the publisher do not own the copyright. But it doesn't mean the owner or the authors of the paper doesn't own the copyright. Nowadays, I don't know about Indonesia, but in Malaysia, a lot of important images. For example, I copyright some of the images of my research work. For example, I have done a design, then I draw the design, I copyright it after I publish it. But before I publish, I don't copyright it. The reason is obvious, because I want to protect myself. When come to that part, when come to open access, you need to send a polite email, request permission to use some of the figure. And to be honest with you, most of the researcher will be very happy to let you to use image for a very simple reason. Because the moment you use their figure, you definitely cite them. When you cite them, they can contribute to a H-index, definitely there's no harm. So it's a win-win situation. But when it comes to open access journal, you need to send the authors a request email to request for permission, for copyright permission. All right, that's a bit different from the all these conventional publisher and things like that, right? So again, I summarize. If it is a conventional journal, not an open access journal, do not send copyright request to the authors. The authors have no right to give you the permission. It is up to the publisher to grant you the permission. When it comes to open access, you need to ask from the authors, right? Because some of the images is being copyrighted and we don't know, so that's the reason we need to ask. All right, there's no more. Any more questions before I move on? Or anybody want to know how should we ask the permission from Wiley? In fact, Wiley, Springer, they're all the same. It's just eventually you just need to find the link. Sometimes it's very obvious and sometimes it's not obvious. But eventually, when you click on it, they always go back to the right link. That's the reason it is good for you to create an account from right link. Do any of you are about to submit a paper to Wiley or Springer or Royal Society of Chemistry, and you need to know how to ask for permissions? Anybody? 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, nobody. Let's move on. All right. So let me stop sharing on my desktop and then moving back to my laptop. All right. So we have talked about how to obtain copyright permission, and that's exactly what I have explained to you all just now and things like that, right? So the last part is this. Again, if you look at it, right, this is for the American Chemical Society, right? I hereby assign the copyright owner the copyright in manuscript, and then above blah blah to grant exclusive on this. This is the term that like what I mentioned just now, the copyright transfer from signed by advisor. Once it's signed, that means the copyright of all the images inside the paper is being transferred to the American Chemical Society, and that's the reason you need to request the copyright permissions from the American Chemical Societies rather than from individual researchers. All right. So this is what I tell you about the STM signatory. I'll provide these slides to Dr. Fritri as well, so you can check who are the members of the STM members. So those under the STM signatory, so they share all the copyright and things like that. Right, of course, and this is exactly how should we do it? All right. So let's come to what is the DPI and how to achieve it for journal publication. I guess the first question is, what is DPI? Okay, the DPI stands for dot per inch, or more technically mean the printed dot per inch. Or now today is mostly PPI, which is pixel per inch, right? And the higher the DPI, the sharper the image. So you look at it, this is 10 DPI, this is 72 DPI. The edges is still bumpy, and when it comes to 300 DPI, then it's very smooth. And for most of the journal nowadays, the minimum requirement is 300 DPI. So if the journal asks you to submit individual figures, or rather than the one that actually been integrated into the Word document, you need to make sure your image is at least 300 DPI. And this is exactly what we're talking about today, right? The process of the image is quite complicated. The thing is, normally you capture one images. Let's say if you're using an optical microscope, of course you have a camera inside your microscope. If you are using electron microscope, of course you also have image. And nowadays most is the digital capture, so you capture images. And normally when it comes to those of microscope, whatever it is, you can set what is the image resolution you want to capture. But for most of the technicians, they do it for you. For example, my microscope, I always set into highest resolution. So it could be up to 1,200 ppi. So the image is really large, right? Once you capture these images, so you need to go through certain image processing. For example, let's say, for example, the transmission electron microscope, you need to include a scale bar into your image. So you need to have a software to include a scale bar, right? So this image processing. And later on, like just now, I show you all just now, because I have image A, B, C, D, right? I need to somehow position them A, B, C, D, put them together side by side, right? I need to use a software to do that, right? I can't just, put inside the Word document. Remember, do not import image A, B, C, D individually as 4 images into your Word document. You should first use the software to combine them as A, B, C, D as one single image first, then only you import into your Word document. With integration purposes, I will strongly recommend you use Microsoft PowerPoint. It's a very powerful one. I'll talk about it a bit later on. You can use PowerPoint to combine them A, B, C, D. Then later, you import it into image, into a Word document. Then here comes the problem. Is at each stage when you transfer them, right? The image resolution can be lost in each of the bits process 1, 2, 3. That's one thing. The second one is, even though I capture 1,200 and my image processing is a very powerful one, like just now I propose to you use a pin.net, right? But when I import it into the PowerPoint, if the PowerPoint are not ready to accept the high resolution image, what will happen is your image will lose your resolution. And that's exactly what we are going to talk about. All right. So in here, I'm going to copy this point. Is this, then I'm going to check. I'm going to put it here, paste over here, and I'll tell you all what I'm going to do here. In the first step, since we want to, here for these cases, I want to use the PowerPoint to integrate my image, my A, B, C, D, 4 images, right, into one single images, save it, then I want to export it to Microsoft Word. So the first thing is my Microsoft PowerPoint, right, need to be able to accept the high images, the resolution, high resolution images, and also I could save it in a high resolution image. And that's exactly where I'm going to do it now. So sorry again, I need to go to use my desktop because the whole process is very tedious and it's very, very computing intensive. So let me stop sharing here. Then I'll go over and I'll open up my PowerPoint. All right, so let me share my PowerPoint here. All right, I think all of you can now see, I'm now in the PowerPoint, right? First, I need to get ready to make sure my PowerPoint, right, is ready to accept high resolution images. That means whatever the thing that I copy inside is a high resolution images, I need to go to the file. If I click on the file and I click onto the option here, the whole thing coming out. I have this table coming out. And if I go to advanced, right, then I pull down where is it? Okay, you see image size and quality, right? Image size and quality, right? The default resolution, I have to choose high fidelity. Can you see it? There's 330, 220, 150, and 96. I think the default is actually 150. But if you do not do this thing, right? High fidelity, when I say high fidelity, that means whatever the image that I import into my PowerPoint actually is not been compressed, right? So then only I click, and you see that I also click do not compress image in the file. Then I click OK, right? Let's say, for example, the Word document is the same. Let's say, let me go ahead. Sorry, let me go and do the Word document the same time, so you all could. All right, it's a Word document, right? It's the same thing. If you go to File, you go to the options at the bottom, and you also go to Advanced. Here you could see it. Image size and quantity is the same thing, right? I'll click do not compress image, and I'll put it high fidelity as well. Be very careful. Do not mess with this document one or all new document. I only want this document to do this. If you set all, to all document, that means from this point onwards, all the images imported into your Word document by using WinWord, right? They all will be in high fidelity and things like that. And out of nowhere, you could see it, your Word document, the file size will be few hundred megabytes, or your PowerPoint will be few hundred megabytes. And you do not want it to happen, because then you'll consume too much of your computer resources. All right, so with this, let us go back to the PowerPoint. So by doing so, right, by doing that, now my figure, right, my PowerPoint, this PowerPoint is ready to accept high resolution images, right? For example, the next step, of course, is I want to make sure this PowerPoint can save images in high resolution. But before that, let me say file. Let me give an example. If I save as, right, I want to save it in the desktop, and I have more options. If I save my PowerPoint presentation slides as JPEG, which is the image file format, if I save it without doing anything, if I save it here, I just save this one. I go back. Right. Now I'm on screen. Right? I'll just this is the file I saved just on presentation one. If I right click on it, I go to properties. I go to the detail. You look at it, my resolution, only 96 dpi. So if I didn't do anything, I'm just using Microsoft PowerPoint, even though my Microsoft PowerPoint is ready to accept high fidelity images. Like just now I set it more than 300 dpi. But no matter how I did, if I didn't do the next step, all the images I saved in the PowerPoint, right, is only going to be saving in 96 dpi only. So that's exactly the steps that we are going to do in the chat, right? If you really look at it, the chat just now, that is what we are going to do in the chat, is to having this prepare the PowerPoint to get ready to save and high resolution images. So the first thing I want you all to do is you need to go to registry. Be very careful about this. I'm going to edit the root registry of the Windows, not PowerPoint, not document, but for your operating system. So you have to follow exactly what I told you. If not, you can crash your system, all right? So you go and Microsoft and type reg. Once you type reg edit, right, you can see it. There's a registry editor coming up, and you just click on it. Then do you want to allow this app to make changes to your devices? You say yes. All right, and you will come to this part, right? So let me try to do it again. Okay, then the next thing that you want to have is go to the HKey user. Here you see that when you come to this registry editor, there are you have five root, right? 5 folders. HKey class root, current user, local machine users, current config. You go to the second one, which is current user. You click onto it, and under the current user, you go to software, and under software, you go to Microsoft. And under Microsoft, you go to Office. So there's an Office, you have 15, 16, whatever it is. Let's say because in my computer, I have 2 versions of Microsoft, Microsoft 15 and 16. So I want to edit now is a 16. Then, because remember now we're editing PowerPoint, so I'm going to PowerPoint. Then under PowerPoint, I go to the options again. All right. And finally, I reach this part, right? And what I need to do now, can all see the right screen? Now I have on the right screen here, right? The right screen, look my pointer. I want to click, having right click on it. I go to new. Once I go to new, then I want to create a dword 32-bit folder. I click on it. Then I rename it as the export bitmap resolution. Then I right click onto it. And what I need to do is I just modify the, sorry, not this one. I just want to modify it. And I want to modify it. I put in decimal here. Then I set my value to 300. What I'm doing it now is I'm trying to tell my operating system next time in the future, if I'm using PowerPoint to save image as JPEG file, right? All the JPEG file image that I save is at the 300 dpi or PPI. So I click OK. So now I have this export bitmap resolution in 300 PPI, thing like that. And now let me go back to my PowerPoint. Just now I saved the presentation 1, right? And the presentation 1 is 96 dpi. Now, if after I do all these steps, now I save as again at this PC. Now I save as presentation 2 on the desktop. Now I save again, I save as JPEG format. Then I save it and save for this slide. Then again, when you look at it, now this is presentation 2. I check on, go to properties, then go to detail. Did you all see it? Now this images is 300 dpi. Just now, this one, properties, before I do all the steps, this one is only 96 dpi. So now my PowerPoint is ready to save image at 300 dpi. Of course, if you really want, you can, just now when I say the binomial, I set 300, you can set it to 600, even 1200. That means next time when you use PowerPoint, right, to save file as JPG or all the image file, either TIFF, JPG, whatever, then the resolution of the image that is saved from the PowerPoint are now all at 300 dpi or even higher. Depends on how you set it. This is a really important step, and you really need to make sure you do this in order for you to use PowerPoint effectively to integrate the images and things like that. Right. So let me do a very quick one. All right. So let's say, for example, in the image and things like that, I have a really large size image. If I click on it, all right, can you all see this? Let me go back to my PowerPoint. Now I'm using a PowerPoint, right? I'm using a PowerPoint to actually integrate this. Right now I have A, B, C, and D. In fact, right, I always, when I want to use my PowerPoint to integrate images, right, I always set my slide, right, the slide size to the largest possible. So you could do it easily by going into the design and your slide sizes, you click on it, custom sizes, I set it into maximum. I already set it into maximum. And so now let's say I want to combine this in 3 TM images, A, B, C, and D. All is, look at it, all A, B, C, and D actually, I'm using the PowerPoint to put in A, B, C, and D here. Then this, of course, this figure I draw by ego, and the 3 I got it from the transmission electron microscope and things like that. And now I will just want to save these images. I save these images as usual on the desktop, and I save it as the JPEG format, right? So I just save just this one. And now I have one large size images here. I click on it. I resave it, as a JPEG as one single figure. Now, just now I combined 4, right? Now I have this 4, right? And if I look at the properties of it, again, the detail is become exactly the DPI that we want, all right? And that's not good enough. Whatever we do just now is, remember, we set the PowerPoint and also our Word document to be ready to accept high resolution images. We set our PowerPoint ready to save images at high resolutions, but we still need to import these images into the Word document, right? For example, I have this Word document. Normally, what the student do is very simple, right? They just open it, and normally the student or my student, they will open it in they open it inside the normal Word document. It's okay. I just open one, yeah, anything, I just open one images. Then the normal one, the student, how do we select all, then Control C, go into Control V. Just paste, Control V, right? Then this is exactly how you're all doing it. Okay, you get done. You already have your image inside. Go into your your Word document. When you do Control C and Control V, remember this is already the process of importing the images into the Word document. Even though you already get your Word document ready to accept high resolution images, but then these images originally is 300 dpi. But by doing Control C and Control V, right? In fact, you compress this image and make it only 96 dpi. By doing only Control C and Control V, you won't retain the resolution of your images. What you need to do is, instead of Control C and Control V, again, I'm still the same. I still copy Control C. I do the same. I copy this. But when I want to export, because now I copy the whole image, right? It's still high resolution. But in order to maintain its resolution, I shouldn't use paste. You look at here. This is a very important step. I hope everybody can see it. Can you see here paste? Right? Pay attention to this. If I click on this paste, there's a paste special here, right? Paste special. I click on paste specials. I should paste special. I should choose Windows metaphor. And when I choose metaphor, I click OK. Now I have this paste in. Then you'll tell me, what an idiot. I just use Control C, Control V. It's much easier. Now I'm doing all this step. It looks exactly the same. Let me remind you this. When you paste as a Windows metaphor, you tell Windows you want to paste this image at its original resolution. So in the process of pasting these images into your Word document, you didn't compress them. If just now you just do Control C, Control V, then you have compressed it already. So be very careful next time. If you want to maintain the resolution of your image, looks really sharp, you should always use paste specials, Windows metaphor. But be very careful, especially if your image is high resolution. Because my PhD thesis, because I'm doing all these controls, paste special, all metaphor, all high resolution images, my thesis at the end is gigabyte, So be very careful. The thing is, for writing a paper is fine, because the papers, the most you have is at 10 figures, 11 figures, 12 figures. You could afford to save it in a few hundred megabytes. There's no problem. But when this is come to a thesis, you need to be very careful and ask yourself, which image I want to paste at a high resolution. Then you need to follow these steps in order to maintain the resolution of images. All right. Yes. Is that possible for the audience version? Okay. Any questions? Yes, my computer is 64-bit. It's not the bit is a bit out of this topic discussion and things like that. But the important thing is, if you are using Word documents and Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint, then you should follow these steps. All right. I'm not sure about Windows 11, but if you are using Windows 7, Windows 10, or whatever, you should follow this step as well. I haven't used a Windows 11 thing, so I don't know exactly how it is. All right. Any questions before I move on to the last part, which is using a pin.net? Any questions? All right. Let me stop sharing from here. All right. And let me share again. All right. If you really look at it, right, whatever the step I tell you all just now is exactly, run registry editor, then you navigate to, HT user software, blah, blah, then create new Word document 32-bit and name it export bit resolution, right click on blah, blah, blah. The step has been summarized. In fact, if there's another YouTube video that I can watch, they tell you exactly how to do it and why you need to do all these things. So the slide will be given. So eventually if you all cannot remember exactly, I know there's a lot of steps involved, but definitely you could, just follow this, right? In fact, afterwards, all the steps about image editing and things like that, I already have a step-by-step instruction for you all. So you all can just follow just in case you forget, right? And for example, like page special, like just now what I tell you all, the page specials. Okay, there's one question. What if we only have the bad resolution images? Okay, it all depends. Afterwards, in the pin.net, I'll explain to you all. In fact, there's a way you can saving your images in a high resolution, even though you may start with very low resolution. But there's a caveat. The caveat is this. Remember, eventually, it's all about how many dots per inch, right? Remember, or pixel per inch, right? That means how many dot per inch. If your original image having bad resolution, but it's a really large image, you can save it at high resolution with the condition you have to compress, you make it smaller. Remember, even though this is 96, let's say I have this really large image, 96 ppi, but if I make it smaller, so the pixel count will increase if I make it smaller. So there's a software, let's say for the pen.net, you can do it. So it will make your larger image become smaller, but increasing your pixel per inch. However, if your image is already very small, there's no any magic that you can do to increase your PPI. You just couldn't. So too bad if you have a very bad image to begin with, and the bad image is the low resolution image is having the size very small, then there's nothing much you can do. Right. And that's another reason why you should think about stop using Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V rather than Ctrl+C and paste special using metaphor. Is this for those who do a lot of computing, programming, and things like that, right? For whatever it is, and some of the like Maple, MATLAB, like mathematical, like those mathematical software and things like that. You done simulation there, but when you want to paste it into your Word document, right? Let's say, for example, in this case, I'm using MATLAB. After I write the code and things like that, I do computations. Actually, in the MATLAB, they already calculate for me, But if I just put Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V and put it inside my PowerPoint, all this simulated number is missing. So sometimes this is missing because you use Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. However, if I use paste with metaphor, can you see it? All the calculated number is appear. So next time, if you want to import some of your results from your program, after you simulating using MATLAB, mathematical or Maple, whatever, and some number is missing, especially the number that you're compiling in the compiler or mathematical software solver, because the reason is missing because you're using Control V, Control C, Control V. So they compress the information. Those information, computer image. Remember, this computer information is due through a series calculation. So there's a lot of information attached to this value. So that's the reason why it doesn't show up, because it's already been compressed. Then they just been omitted out from the whole thing. So that's another reason why it is important for you to use Control C and paste special metaphor, because it won't be compressed that way. And of course, I will also tell you all how to do it, or to accept high fidelity images and things like that, right? So just in case you forget, just refer to slides. All right. So now what I'm going to talk about is we still have about 30 minutes. So in fact, actually, I want to do two, but I think now I can only do one. I'm going to talk about time-lapse image creation, but anyway, the removing image background and things like that, I could tell you all there's a dirty and quick way of doing it. It's not that nice, but at least it can do it very quickly. All right. So I'm going to talk only about time-lapse image creation. What it mean is something like this. Right. I want to create images that's showing the a series of images that's showing all these things one step by step. Right. All the step is been clearly laid out. You just need to follow the instructions. So again, allow me to switch back to my desktop. And now I'm going to use paint.net. So for those who actually have downloaded and also download the images I have uploaded on my Google account, right? You can actually do this step together. Then you can have a clear picture of what's going on. All right. So let me stop sharing here. And I'll share again. I need to close some because I open up too many and all the file size is really, really large. Okay. All right, so this is the user interface of pin.net. For those who actually already use it and things like that, it looks really simple, but it's very powerful. And more importantly, it is free. That's the most important one, right? You do not want to pay. Like, I'm pretty sure Adobe Photoshop is way more powerful than this, but you should pay a huge price for it, right? So what you need to do now is we just need to, what we need now, we want to create a time-lapse images. But first of all, let us open up the file image. Actually, I have uploaded a series of images, but I think I give you all three because it's large. But now let's open one of them. Right, you can see one of them. Remember, actually, I set up a studio. Inside my lab actually to capture a series of images. So if I open another one, but before I do it, I'll always advise this, because remember, this is your raw data. And now we are about to do modification on this raw data. It's a good practice for you all to file, save as, and you save as something, I save it as a new 01. Remember, I opened these images, right? But now what I want is, I want to save as this. Can you all see my screen or not? All right, you could, right? Okay. Now I save it. The reason like this is, now I save it just in case something wrong with the modification and things like that. I still always have the raw image ready. So it is very, 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 very important. I learned it in a very painful way, So I want to remind you all this. Do not modify your raw image. You always save it in other image file first, then only you modify it. Because if you do anything stupid, then you lost the data forever and ever. And that's very, 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 very important. I can't stress how important it is, right? if you will cry if you do this stupid thing and eventually you can't retrieve back the original images. So make sure you have all this saved in the new file format. All right. So now this is the first image, right? So now I want to have an image sequence, right? So what I need to do is you pay attention on this, all right? And you look at it, I have the layers here. The layers here now is 0. Now let me go to layers. If you go to layers, import from file. Now I import the second images, right? I click on it. All right, now if you go and layers, can you see it now? Now I have two. This is the original image. This is the new image that I just import. Now there's 2 layers. Now you see it. Now I have 2 images stacking on top of each other, right? So what I need to do now, I just need to import file. I import another layers. Now, if you look at here again, now I have 3 images. So what you need to do, you just keep import file. All right, so now I have all 5 images stacked onto each other, right? Of course, if you have 10 and 20, then you just keep stacking to each other. The reason I stack to each other, because now I could crop, right? I'm using this. I just use this rectangular, the sections here. Then what I need to do now is I'll just select the area that I want, right? I select the area that I want. Then I go to image and I go to choose a crop through selection, or just press Ctrl+Shift+X. The moment I put it, now I have cropped all the unnecessary area out from every single images. Look at it, even for image, all these images now is all been cropped out, right? And now what I need to do is I only tick one of them. I untick all of them. Here, you look at the layers here again, my pointer, layers here. I untick all of them. I left only one. The reason I untick all of them is because now I only want to copy this image out. So with doing this, what I need to do is I push Ctrl+A. I select all, Ctrl+A, that means select all, right? Then I Ctrl+C, which means I copy them. Ctrl+A, Ctrl+C. Then the last one I need to do is Control, Alternate, and V. And look at Control, Alternate, and V. If I put Control, Alternate, and V, what happened now is I have copied the first layer out from these images, and copied and become a new standalone image, right? So what I could do now is I just go individually to these images, Control+A, Ctrl+C, and Control+Alternate V. Now I have another image, right? So what I need to do is now I only need to repeat all of them. Ctrl+A, Ctrl+C, Control+Alternate V. Ctrl+A, Ctrl+C, Control+Alternate V. Ctrl+A, Ctrl+C, Control+Alternate V. Now I have all the images, I all crop out with the same sizes, same positions, and now with each of them, I separate them out as individual image. And the last thing I need is I will just copy each of the images into the, as a save each, let's say I file, I will just save each of them as a single JPG, and now I could put it as ×0. I save this, then it becomes ×0. Of course, you ask me, since we just now use a PowerPoint, right? We can use the Microsoft PowerPoint to integrate everything. What I need to do is once I have all this, right, Control C, Control V, all I need to do is I just put it here. I just Control A, Control C, right? Then I can open up my PowerPoint. If I open up my PowerPoint, I wonder, can you all see my PowerPoint now? All right, I need to share to you.
No, Professor, we cannot see your PowerPoint.
Let me share the PowerPoint.
Perhaps you can stop share first.
Yeah, no.
Yes, we can see it now.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
we can see it now.
okay, now the PowerPoint, right? Just now I will control. Now I need to do is pay special. I paste this image inside, right? So I really didn't need to do any, any extra thing. So the reason, why we want to, let me go back to pin.net. Why I want to paste each one of them out and save it as an individual file? Because I can do extra modification later on. If let's say you only want to create an individual images, right? Time-lapse images, you could just go for it. And I could just Control A, Control C, then I could just put it, side by side and things like that. Sorry, I should go and share my screen directly. Right. So I will just I could just put it and I could label A, B, and C and D here. You could do it, of course you could. But remember, then if you close this, the pen.net, right? If you without saving all these things, later on you will lose it forever. Then you really need to redo everything. Then you need to crop everything, import all the images into one single layer, crop it out one by one, Control C and paste special back out, right? So I'll rather use, after you have processed these images, crop it out, and you save it as an individual file first, and later on, if you want to do anything, you can just do it without need to go through the process of redo everything. Of course, you will say, that's so easy, right? Why I need to do it? I would rather save my time and directly paste into the PowerPoint. Remember, these only 5 images, but some of the figure, let me go and show you. For example, I have so many of them, right? And you just couldn't copy all the thing and close all these individual file. I have every individual file, I have one format. So I didn't need to redo all these things all over again. So I strongly recommend, especially if you want to process time-lapse image, that means you want to show how the thing change with respect to time, right? It is better for you to save individually every single images. Then later on, only you export one by one to the PowerPoint, then compile them in the PowerPoint. Right. And one reason why, of course, I don't think any student will challenge me. Why use PowerPoint? What's the advantages of use PowerPoint? Let me show you very quickly what the PowerPoint can do for you all. All right. So let's say, for example, I have these images, right? And I screw up one thing, right? And one misaligned. Then of course I can easily go and drag it over. Or what I can do is, PowerPoint is very good in arranging all this, is because they have this here. If you look at it, can you see it? There's one called arrange. If you click on the arrange, right? Let's say, then you will align. Then what it can do is, let's say, for example, I have this, right? I want to get all these 3 aligned, right? I go arrange, align, and align top. When align top, then they all align into one line, one single line. And all these images, right? I want them to distribute almost equally. I just click all this line, all this image in the one row. I go to arrange, align. You see that? Distribute horizontally. They all distribute equally horizontally, arrange it very nicely. Especially if you have a lot of images, then you not even need to be one by one to dragging all over the place. Then of course there's other things. There's so many things that you can do with align, align line, distribute vertically, whatever, align to side, whatever, that you need to go and explore yourself. But if you haven't used this align function in the PowerPoint, right, to integrate your images and things like that, maybe you should do it. It's a very powerful way of doing it. All right. So questions about pin.net, because I left only about 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes, because I need to have some time for Q&A. All right, let me move on. Oh, sorry, one thing I forget. Okay. I do not have time to go through the other one, which is using pin.net to remove the background, blah, 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 and things like that. Let me do it a very quick and easy way. All right. So let's say if we have, let me get one images. Let me now paste this image, right? If I want to remove the background of this image, right, I can do it not even going through any fancy software. I can just do it using PowerPoint. Can you see when you click on these images, you look at this corner, there's one thing is called remove background, right? If I click on remove background, what will happening is you will highlight everything. Then I will ask mark area to keep. If I click on it, I want to mark the area to keep. I just keep clicking on it until you recognize this is the area I want to keep. Okay. Now what happened? What happened now is if I click on all these things, if I discard all, sorry, mark area to keep. Okay, so it's about right. Now I have removed all the background and left only this, the QVAT that's showing up and things like that, then all other background have been removed. I can do it in a quick and dirty way. Right. Of course, the pen.net can do it a much smoother way and things like that. But in a PowerPoint, you can remove the background of some of the picture easily. And this is especially come to be very handy if you want to do a transparent background images for your signature. I think nowadays, especially when during MCO and things like that, even students, you need to submit documents, whatever, and you need to include your e-signature, right? You can use the you can use this figure, just click on it and remove the background and do it really quickly, a very quick and dirty way. Of course, you need to have a lot of try and error, but you can definitely use PowerPoint to do that easily. Of course, pen.net is much powerful, but the steps is much more involved and much more complicated. All right, so let me stop sharing here and let me go back to my slide. All right, so just now about creating the image sequences, blah, everything, I put it here. So I'll strongly recommend those who haven't downloaded the pin.net, right? Go ahead and download it and try to use it. In fact, there's a lot of functions that could be, can be used for like saving and high resolution images and things like that, which can be very powerful. All right. I have to skip the one of the steps, which is removing a background using pen.net. But anyway, I'll show you all how to do it by using the PowerPoint already. Okay, the last part I want to talk a little bit about it, maybe just 2 or 3 minutes before I open up for discussions, is the graphical abstract and its main concerns. So nowadays, almost when you submit the manuscript, right, it's not only you need to have a written abstracts, you also need to have a graphic abstracts. And nowadays, I guess almost all of the journals expect you to submit a graphic abstract, right? So it is a single concise pictorial representations of the main finding of your articles. And you need to design one of your graphic abstract. One first advice I could give is do not reuse any of the existing figures inside your paper as your graphic abstract, which means you already draw one figure, right? Let's say figure one is a graph, or even figure 1 is the illustration of your hypothesis. You do not want to reuse figure 1 and directly make it as a graphic abstract. Don't be lazy. You need to create a new graphic abstract. Of course, let's say you want to combine figure 1, 2, 3 in your paper as a graphic abstract. Go ahead, that's good. But do not just use one figure and directly make it your graphic abstract. It gives a really, really bad impression about you. Just show you are lazy. So don't do it. In fact, there's some journal, right? They ask the reviewer, do the authors reuse any of his images as a graphic abstract? Or is the graphic abstract represent the main message of the figures? Oh, sorry, main message of articles. So as such, there's always some questions the reviewer need to answer about a graphic abstract. So you have to be very careful about it. And here are some points to ponder. And think about how you want to construct your graphic abstract. You have to think about what your paper is describing. Is it a mechanism, a theory, a structure, or cause and effect? And what kind of visual can be best to showcase this concept, right? So this, if it is images that's showing a processes, or it's a method, so you have a graphic that showing the methods and things like that. And I especially like these images, because these images actually is really neat and have a white background. Everything is very clear, and they show exactly this on and off. It's very simple. They have just a contradicting to each other. Then it's showing active and block mechanism. And sometimes you can use different color tone as a background to differentiate two processes. But for example, I don't like this graphical abstract because there's a gradient of color that doesn't show any purposes, just for aesthetic purposes. So do not do something like this. And especially there's a lot of words inside this. So try to refrain from using too much of wording, right? And keep your abstract to single images or the split panels. Like just now, it's either one images or you split the panels. But the split panels need to mean something. For example, these cases mean something. These two also mean something, active and block, right? Do not use figure, especially your graph. I'm so surprised. Even nowadays, there's still some good journal. Their graphic abstract is just one graph, and which looks really bad. And I don't think I strongly against this, because remember, even in our last seminar, right, we talk about what is the thing that the reader read first. Maybe it's your topic, title, your abstract, your authors list, whatever. But nowadays, even without going through all these things, the first thing they will look at it is the graphical image, your graphic abstract. That's the first thing they come across, right? Even only the graphic abstract, then they will go and read your topic, your titles. So it is important for us to actually design something which is more self-explanatory, rather than just recycle one of our figures. And do not avoid using too many detail. Like this guy, I think they try too much and cram too much of detail into the graphic abstracts and too much of information, which is bad. And some, like too much of wording and things like that. And I strongly against the idea of using other people's images, even though just now we just learned about how to obtain the copyright permissions for your paper, right? But do not use other people's images as your graphic abstract. Remember, graphic abstract is a way for you to advertise your work, not other people's work. So please do not use other people's images in your graphic abstract unless it is really necessary. All right. So why graphic abstracts matter? I don't think I need to explain to you anymore. I think nowadays everybody know it is a effective way for science communication. It's really give the pictorial illustration of your ideas and things like that. All right, just some conclusion for this today talk. Check for the general guideline for figure design. Pay attention on the resolution requirement, and when you transfer one image from one software to another software, right, be very careful about it because you're going to lose some of your resolution if you didn't do it correctly or properly. And do not use Excel to plot your graph. If you ask me, right, I want to learn only one thing from today's talk. I'll tell you the only thing you need to learn is do not use Excel to plot your graph. That might be the only thing I want to really emphasize. And of course, if you want to have another take-home message, try to explore the Microsoft PowerPoint to integrate all the images. It's a very powerful, and for a lot of us, it's actually a free software because the university pay for it already. So all you need to do is just use it for free. And with this, I would like to conclude the talk today, and thank you so much for attention. And I will be very happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Professor. That was very interesting. And to be honest, that was a very dense presentation that you have.
I know.
Give.
Sorry about it. Yeah, there's so much information. There are a lot of steps and things like that.
I understand that. Perhaps participant, do you have any question?
Sure.
Okay, Ahmad Rosikin, please.
Thank you very much for the time. My name is Ahmad Rosikin from Indonesia. Related to the figure designs, there are a lot of options. For example, the TIFF or JPEG, and my supervisor suggests me to use TIFF, not PNG or other file. What is the difference between them? And according to your suggestion, what is the better resolution between TIFF or PNG or GPG? Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. Especially for those who, I think this question can have a lot of levels. Now because remember today is the dummy way of formatting, so I'm talking about a dummy way. So it's very, very basic. I think your advice is definitely right. TIFF is have much more information into it. Okay, there's a lot of detail. For those who use DSLR, that means they use the bulky camera rather than the smartphone that's use bulky camera and set everything. Then you can choose the raw format. How the images been transferred from, you take a photo and if the photo eventually it looks really nice and things like that. In fact, if you ask engineers, they tell you it's just about a matrix, Then 1 pixels, actually there's 3 RGB, right? The 3 color, red, green, and blue. And RGB have number, then you can put it in the number. Then the color tone and the threshold limit and things like that, and it's a matrix. So if you look at one images, for example, now if I show, you look at me, right, in this, how actually the image has been transferred from my side. And when you look at it, you look at me, then I have all the color, even my ball head is ball, I have a reflection, something, all this like this. And every single point is matrix. And inside every matrix, there's another matrix. So it's become a very, very complicated, a large compilation of number. So what TIFF, JPG, all of this is exactly how they store this information and how much information is stored in every single images in matrix form. So your advice is definitely right. It's better for us to use it in the TIFF and things like that. All right, no argument about it. The only concern about TIFF is TIFF because it stores more information and things like that. So normally it's much larger. For publication, simple paper publication, I think it's perfectly fine because normally it's have anyway between 8 images or even 10 images, that's fine. For my case, right, because I store all my images, my raw images, that means all in the raw images format. Not in TIFF, not in JPG, but in the raw data and things like that. So it's really large. However, when I convert it, out again. Let's say, for example, I have a video I capture using optical microscope. Just now you saw it a lot of the microscopy and things like that. I want to now break this video into a lot of images. One of my research, like I think you all know already, is a transport phenomena. That means I use my microscope and look at the thing, then eventually I record the video and I break it in. And some of my image is 300 image in second. That means if I record a 5 second video, 5 seconds times 300, there's 1,500 images. Then my student will stupidly sit 1,500 images, you know. And if each images I store in all in TIFF, so one of the video I could go to 100 gigabyte. That's the reason why my group is crazy. We have hundreds of hard drives saving all these images and things like that. So in order to save the file size and things like that, normally we only have a raw images and we only have JPG. We do not have TIFF because the TIFF eventually is too much. However, I strongly recommend, like what your advisor recommend, if I want to draw only few images for publication, I'll save it in the TIFF. And in fact, when I submit individual file, I'll try to submit as a TIFF as well.
Okay, thank you. One more, is there possible for me? You read that don't use Excel to plot your graph. What is the software recommendation according to your experience?
Sure. There's a lot. For example, my wife, she's using Sigma plot. But I like to use, I like to use Ego, IGOR. Let me type it here. The reason I use Ego is because my PhD advisor, she's using Mac. So my PhD advisor group is always all using Macintosh and things like that. And Ego is a popular software. So I learned how to use Ego and things like that. So now I bought Ego for my group. I think Ego is quite expensive. I think Sigma plot is a bit cheaper, but it really depends. But one cool thing about the Ego, right, is it have a lot of function and it can save the image into a very, very high resolution images. I'm sorry, I do not have time to talk about Ego because it's a really complicated software. But Ego is almost like Excel. Excel is also almost like a spreadsheet, but it's purposely designed to draw a graph. However, for those who have experience of using Excel, will learn Ego very, very fast, very easy to pick up for Excel user. And that's another advantage is why I say Ego is a good software to use, because there's a lot of things that are very similar to Excel, but just way more powerful in drawing graph compared to Excel.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Very nice.
All right, thank you, Professor. I think we have another question here in the chat room.
Sure. When is the right time to prepare a graphical abstract? That each journal have its own rule for graphical abstract. All right. Definitely, some of the journal, let's say for example, if I remember correctly, ECS Nano is a very good journal. They have a stringent requirement not only on the resolution of the graphical abstract, but the size, image size. So they set like 3" by 2" with certain kind of DPI. So definitely every journal have their own rule for graphical abstract. So it's important before you submit the journal, you need to look at it. Right? But a lot of Elsevier journal do not have such a rule. So you can save it in the high resolution, the sizes and things like that. They don't care too much. Of course, they have certain kind of aspect ratio that you need to fulfill as well. But they are quite laid back about it. I never got too much of troubles when I publish in Elsevier journal and come to the graphical abstract, the rule and things like that. And when is the best time to prepare a graphic abstract? I would say right after you finish writing all the papers, then you go and write your abstract. Then you decided what is the topic, right? After you decided what topic, you have your abstract. Then only you draw your graphical abstract, I would say. So graphic abstract should be prepared after you have your abstract been written out, after you have your title. Because when you're writing an abstract and you think about the title, right, you think a lot about the main message of your articles. And the graphic abstract serve the purpose of delivering the main message. So it's been crystallized in your mind that you know exactly what's the main message. So I guess it makes a lot of sense. You draw your graphic abstract after you have finished written your abstract and also the title. hope I answer your questions. All right. Any more questions?
Okay. Does other participant have any other questions? Okay. I think I have one myself actually.
Sure. Sure. Can
When
we? Sure.
Do you have any recommendation for software like XMGrace that is in Linux that can be used for graphical abstract other than XMGrace?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe Ego actually run on Linux platform, but I don't think Pin.net is running on Linux platform. Pin.net only run on the iOS system or on the Windows platform. I'm not familiar with Linux, so I can't really help. But I think one of the word processors on the Linux basis, what's that called? I cannot remember exactly. Sorry, I need to check. But one thing is this. Let me check online really quick, then I can answer this question better. Some of the open source, like processors and things like that. Nowadays, I guess all these open source processors, now they could actually save it inside the Word document. So even the Googles and things like that, you can save it in the Word documents, and eventually other people can open it. But I have some troubles when one of my students are using open access, like word processors that eventually I can't open it. Remember, nowadays, right, especially in the scientific community, it is important for you to, after you finish prepare your manuscript, your images, when you send over to other people can open it up and look at it together. So it is important for you to make sure whatever that you use need to be as universal as possible, not as powerful as possible. It can be very powerful, but if people couldn't open it up or couldn't get access to it, then it means serious troubles. So be very careful. I don't think I answered your question about graphic. It's more about the word processing. But I guess for those who are using Linux platform and you're using the open source of the word processors and things like that, I think there's so many like LibreOffice or whatever it is, and the other one is LaTeX. But remember, the important one is you need to make sure the most important one is your advisors and your collaborator can open it up. That's the most important one. So unfortunately, if you are only Linux user in the whole department, right, or in your group, your advisor is not using Linux, your friend is not using Linux, you are the one that only using Linux, you have to think twice. The thing is this, I didn't really think about this very carefully. When I first started to look for a job, you'll be very surprised, especially in the United States. When you go to interview for the job, looking for the position as academic position in certain university, right? They'll ask you specifically what kind of software you use to write your papers, because they know they're all the department, everyone is using WinWord. I guess it's almost universal now. Even WinWord is bad, it's terrible, but everybody is using it. Then out of nowhere, you use some funny software, which you can't save in a Word document, but you can save it in PDF. Then expect other people to edit PDF for you. I think it's very hard for people to adjust to you. You have to adjust to other people, right? So I don't think I have answered your questions, but I think I have to remind you, if you are using Linux, be very careful. You need to use a software that almost everybody is using. So in order for you to share the resources among others, and then that's so important for advisor to get resources. Let's say, for example, I bought Ego, not only for me, but for also having a license for the whole group. Right? I think the advisor need to spare some grant money to buy this software for the group.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So basically just consider the compatibility, right?
Yeah, I guess this is a really important thing.
Yeah,
especially when you go to look for a job, I'm quite surprised. When I go to job interview and things like that, I just realize that people are caring about it. And in fact, people are talking about it as well. All right. So I guess there's a questions on the...
Yeah, there are two actually.
Yeah, there's two actually. The first question is by
Dwi Febrianti.
Yeah, can we hire someone to help us in creating graphic abstract? Sure, if you are rich, why not? I hope I'm as rich as you. Then I can employ somebody. I don't need to use this stupid software engineers, you know. Of course you can do it. But I guess the thing is, even you hire somebody, let's say from art school, to do it for you and you pay them, all the rules still apply because they're artists, they're not scientists. So they were over creating something that's so nice, so beautiful, and things like that. But remember, you are conveying the scientific message. So it is important for us to refrain from using a lot of fancy color, fancy three-dimensional, 3D images, shadow, transparency, blah, whatever. Those you need to be very careful about it. All right. So yes, for sure, you can hire somebody to do it if you are rich enough. All right. So I never think about it because I'm so poor, right? So I never think about that point at all. Okay. That second question is from Ahmad Roshinkin is, in ACS journal, the figures are beautiful. Do you know what kind of software they use to construct it? I guess the first thing is I don't know, but I could tell you this thing. Regardless what kind of software you use, if you have saved it in a high resolution images, then your figure will look very attractive. I guess the most of the figures that looks very bad, terrible, looks very diffuse and things like that. It's not about too much about the design, but about the resolution. So I think the resolution of image is very important. And how about, can we construct only using Microsoft PowerPoint? To tell the truth, right? All the graphical abstract that I've constructed so far, I'm always using Microsoft PowerPoint only. I never use other fancy software to draw and things like that. Of course, some of my students, if my students are the one that draw the graphical abstract, and they use a very fancy software. But for me, if I some of the paper and things like that we do and things like that, we are using. If I'm the one that draw the graphical abstract, I'm using PowerPoint only, and I think PowerPoint is good enough for most of the thing. Of course, it won't be so fancy and so nice, but at least you get the message across. I don't know where. Sure. Let me see whether I could find one of the graphic abstract that I constructed. Now I can share with you all. All right. All right. So this one of the, sorry, not this one. Okay, this is one of the graphical abstract that we constructed. I cannot find it. So actually what I really want to find is as one of the graphical abstract, I'm using the PowerPoint, I draw the sail and things like that. In fact, you can just do it. Sorry, I can't find it here, but the raw images, but you can definitely do it. But one thing, if you want to use Microsoft PowerPoint, right, to do it, remember to set your image file size, the size of your image to the largest, almost you draw almost like a poster. You do it very large, then if everything very large, then you draw it, then you save it in a high resolution, then you compress, then you resize it, and it looks really, really sharp and really, really nice looking. Okay. I hope I answered the questions. Any more questions?
I think that's it for today.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Professor. Perhaps Bu Fitri have something to say first?
Yeah, just to extend our gratitude to Prof. Lim for very, how to say, amazing workshop today. Yeah, even though very basic, but we got many strategies how to prepare the good resolution figure, yeah, to be displayed in our manuscript or our publications. Thank you very much, Prof. Lim, for kindly sharing. Sometimes we consider the, how to say, quite complicated software, but even though with Microsoft PowerPoint, yeah, we can utilize it to prepare the good and attractive figure for our publications. And I do believe this is very helpful for the student, especially, yeah, who are ongoing in the preparations of the paper. And yeah, I guess we already prepared the certificate, Pak Hafiz, to be shared.
Yes, let
Yeah.
me share it
Yeah,
first.
maybe you can share it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
All right.
I shared the wrong one. This is-
Mhm. Yeah, this is the certificate that we provided for your excellent and very insightful lectures for today. So I do hope you can receive it. Yeah. And yeah, we sincere thanks for your great contributions on this third workshop. Thank you, Prof. Lim.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
Mhm.
attending.
Mm.
And I guess there's a lot of information presented today. So
Mhm.
you all can contact me through email, just in case you need any, detail about or tips and whatever, especially about copyright. Be very careful about copyright because eventually you can bring the legal cases and things like that. So we all need to protect ourselves. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Need more practice, yeah, Prof. Lim.
Yeah.
To mastery that how to say that strategy, how to apply. And for the next activities, do you have any information to be shared with the audience, Prof. Lim? I
Alright.
guess as we plan, we will have.
By right, we should
practical-
have the online lecture. But I think since I'm going over, I think it's better for me to make the lecture instead of online, offline. Then I could see the audience, especially because that is not about it's because it's about undergraduate. So I think undergraduate is better for me to go over. So I guess we will do another 3 more lectures. For those who are interested, I'm going to tell a very simple nanomaterial related thing with particles interactions using different kind of mathematical models and how we should look at the particles interactions that eventually influence the engineering application. So there's 3 lectures. One lecture is only 1 hour, no more 2 hours lectures. I think it's too much for everybody. 1 hour. So most probably it's 40 minutes, a very simple discussion about certain theory, very simple theory, very useful about how the nanomaterial interacting with each other and how this interaction influence engineering practicability or chemical application and things like that. So there's 3 lectures. And later on, of course, is the research talk. And I'm going to talk mainly about what I have been doing, so we can actually sit down together and talk about what is the collaboration. And so far now, Dr. Fritri and I, we have one project on the paper-based magnetophoresis and sensing, and that we are currently preparing a manuscript. So maybe I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. Right.
But the schedule maybe hasn't yet determined, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and also we are still waiting for your confirmations. Is it?
Yes, yes. I try to send it to you by the end of this week, I hope.
Yeah, hopefully. And how about the how to say the permissions from your school?
I still don't. I didn't hear anything. I already called them. Then they tell me. I suppose they're going to tell me the information by this week as well. So we'll just wait and see. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, we are looking forward to hear from you. Yeah, for that update. Yeah, and regarding to the second workshop and also the third workshop today, if you don't mind, could you please share your workshop material?
Sure. My second workshop, actually, I sent over. You didn't receive it, is it?
I haven't yet received it, but if
right. Let me send it
I
over
will check
again.
it. Yeah,
sure.
if possible. Not only for the participant, but also I need it to be reported. Yeah.
Sure. I'll send it over to you.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward. Yeah. Very
sure.
soon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Pak Hafiz. Yeah. I guess you can.
Yes. I will share. Yes. So thank you, Professor Lim, and thank you, Bu Fitri. So unfortunately for today, we have come to the end of our seminar session. But just as talked before, there will be other session, but this time it would be offline. So if you are interested, please do come to UPI because unfortunately we cannot provide a teleconference with offline lectures like this. Okay, thank you for your attention, and I will share the attendance link, and hopefully we can meet again on the next occasion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Lim. Wish you a great day. Yeah, and really looking forward to see you again.